In Texas Congressman Michael McCaul. He is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Homeland Security Committee. Chairman Emeritus, good morning, sir. And you also subpoenaed, I want to add here, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken over his refusal to appear before your committee on the Afghanistan withdrawal. Tell us about that.
Well, look, I mean, they say, why is it September? Your report's coming out. It's taken us 2 years to get to this point because of the obstruction. I've had to issue subpoena after subpoena. I've had to threaten to hold, say, Secretary Blinken in contempt, which has slowed down the process. But, you know, the fact is that the Dems are blaming the prior administration for the Doha agreement when they tore up every agreement the Trump administration had, including remain in Mexico. But the fact of the matter is the Taliban were in violation of the Doha agreement. And therefore, President Biden had no justification to go to this go to zero, pulling all military troops out, all contractors, going to zero, leaving our Marines at the end of the day were left completely unprotected, and 13 servicemen and women died as a result of that. We will be honoring them tomorrow with the Congressional Gold Medal.
Well, those lives lost was devastating at the time. Those families are still dealing with their grief 3 years later, as we just actually honored their memories on the 3-year anniversary of that suicide attack. And that kind of goes to, there's more questions and answers here. I think the biggest overall question, though, is why was the Biden administration so focused on the calendar? You know, initially there were reports that he wanted to wait until he wanted to make sure it was before September 11th of 2021. But it was all about the calendar. It wasn't about the reality on the ground. And why didn't they save Bagram? I feel like we have never gotten a clear answer from them as to why you didn't at least maintain control of Bagram, knowing that the Taliban were already amassing their forces. And one more thing, sorry, but why did they have to release thousands of those Taliban? The Afghan government, when they were still in control, they released, what, 5,000 Taliban fighters before the withdrawal? It's almost like you handed the Taliban Afghanistan on a silver platter.
Well, you're very perceptive, Cheryl. I mean, number one, it should be conditions on the ground always. It shouldn't be some made-up calendar like September the 11th, for God's sakes, which was, I thought, a slap in the face to the victims of 9/11. You know, but having said that, Bagram was completely left unattended because General McKenzie did not have the number of troops able to maintain that, and HKI Airport to make the exit. So what happened? $7 billion in weapons left behind and millions of dollars in cash. But like you pointed out, thousands of ISIS-K prisoners busted out of those jails, the worst of the worst. One of them actually turned out to be the suicide bomber who killed the 13 service men and women, 170 Afghans, and wounding 45 more Americans. And let me point this one out, too. It's that same ISIS-K now that we see coming across our southwest border from Mexico into the United States. So this impacts not just Afghanistan now, it impacts directly the homeland.
Before you go, sir, I do want to ask you about this. Former presidential candidate and former UN ambassador Nikki Haley speaking out about the threat of China against Taiwan. Listen to her comments here. They're disconcerting.
10 years ago, their Chinese investment was 84%. Today, their Chinese investment is 11%. They are proactively not investing in China. Their mandatory military service starting at 18 years old, they are getting ready militarily. They're doing joint training with America, which is fantastic. When it comes to our allies, when it comes to freedom-loving countries, we need to be the best friend to them that we can. Because if China takes Taiwan, what we saw with Russia and Ukraine, it affected 1% of GDP, and you saw the economy shake from that. If China takes Taiwan, it would be 10% of the global GDP.
Chairman, your reaction?
She's right. I just got back from Taiwan, South China Sea. It's very hot there, and not just temperature-wise, very hostile, I should say. We were surrounded by battleships, Chinese cutters. But the fact is, 60% of international trade goes through the straits, and 90% of the advanced semiconductor manufacturing takes place at TSMC in Taiwan. Imagine an invasion of Taiwan. It would shut down 90% of the global supply of semiconductors, send us an economic tailspin.
Chairman Michael McCaul, thank you so much for being here this morning. And obviously a lot is on the docket for you and your colleagues as the August recess is over. Sir, thank you.